Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today we're diving into something truly mind-blowing, and that is the quantum nature of water. So what do we actually know about water in 2025? 2025? Forgot the year right? I think so. So how might ancient cultures have tapped into water to energize the landscape and by extension us, animals and plants? Well, in this episode, I'm going to be pulling together from cutting edge science, including insights into our understanding of quantum biology. Plus, we'll explore a hypothesis that I have about sacred sites. So get yourself comfortable. We're going to dive into water, maybe get yourself a glass of water to look at how water is possibly more alive than you think. So let's get started. First off, I want to talk about what makes water so special at a quantum level. Now, we all know it's H2O, two hydrogen molecules and one oxygen bonded together. We used to draw this in school, didn't we? Like Mickey Mouse, one big molecule and two molecules look like its ears. But water isn't just a passive liquid, it's actually a dynamic player in life itself. So, how our biology connects to the natural world, it really points to something wild here. We know that water has a fourth phase. So, beyond solid, liquid, and gas, there's this structured phase. And it's sometimes called exclusion zone or easy water. And this was discovered by Gerald Pollack a few years back. When I heard about it, I became absolutely fascinated with this because when water acts like this, it's like a gel. It's like a hexagonal lattice structure, and it forms next to the surface of cell membranes or even in the open air under certain conditions. So if you've got to imagine like water, here's a little diagram that I've very hastily drawn. This is like the bulk water we used to draw at school, and this is structured water. So this is very organized and that is very chaotic. That's the water that comes out of your tap. This is structured water. Now, here's where we get to sort of the quantum level. Structured water isn't just sitting there, it's actually buzzing with energy. So, researchers show that it has a negative charge and it can hold and transmit information through its molecular arrangement. So, water in our body actually acts like a battery and it stores energy from light, from sound, and even the Earth's magnetic fields. And what we know now is that this structure to water, it actually impacts everything from protein folding to how our cells communicate with each themselves. So one study at the University of Washington, for instance, found that easy water excludes impurities like a filter, and its charge actually drives biological processes in the body. So this is not woo, this is thermodynamics meeting quantum physics. And we have this water in us. So, what do we know about water right now? Well, water's quantum nature means it's sensitive to the environment. Light, for instance, think sunlight. This can energize water molecules and shift their structure. So, putting water in sunlight, letting water dance on sunlight is really important to its structure. So in 2021, there was a paper in the Journal of Physical Chemistry, and that showed how infrared light increases the coherence of hydrogen bonds and it makes water more coherent, structured. Sound does this too. Vibrations can ripple through water, aligning its molecules. Now, if we look at ancient practices with water, chanting or drumming near water was a way to tune it. And our ancient sacred sites, we often find energy on the infrared spectrum, vortices are on the infrared spectrum. Columns of light come out in the infrared spectrum. I'm very fortunate I can actually see these things because they kind of bend light, and for some reason I can see them. So this makes me think, there is a technology to our ancient sites that used infrared spectrums and we manipulated our environment with the use of light, sound, and stone and other things. So get this. This is gets back to water again. Water's quantum coherence, so its ability to act as a unified system with all those little structures talking together rather than bashing about, not really communicating. That might even tie into quantum entanglement, where distant molecules, so this body of water here, can influence each other instantaneously. So the information held in a body of water in that geographical location is instantly transmitted to a body of water in another geographical location. And I have found that to be the case with geomancy. So when I've been working in properties to heal water, and I'm currently doing this with my students to heal water, if you can't get at that water, you can use geomantic healing techniques on a bowl of water here with your intention actually of sending it to other water. And the results have shown that, yes, it works. So this is something, it's still a theory. In essence, my research backs that up, but hopefully the science will, look at that. And I know that that is being explored in labs today, so that's really exciting. Now let's take this thinking a step further. I want you to think about Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, or ancient wells like Chalice Well in Glastonbury. Well, these places are often tied to water, springs, rivers, underground streams, underground rivers. So my hypothesis is that ancient cultures knew something about water's quantum nature, even if they didn't call it that. Those are our words, but I think they had an implicit understanding about how intimately linked on a energetic, or what we would call it now, quantum level, the whole of the universe is. So they built sites, I believe, to harness and amplify, for one thing, the energy in water, which then energizes the landscape and everything living in it. That includes us, animals, and plants. So, how did they do this? Well, my theory is it was through geomancy, which is what I do. It's working with earth energy, that would be water, electromagnetic fields, piezoelectricity in rocks, paramagnetism in soil. So we can align stones and structures with lines of electromagnetism and other things. And through that, we can, through these sites as well, that we can then use ritual, so sound, music, drumming, and our intention to structure the water. And our intention is energy as information, which then that water can transmit through the landscape. So, there is science to back this up now. Studies on ley lines, these energy pathways across the earth, which are actually most largely electromagnetic in nature and also sound. It's not a sound we can hear, it's like a subaudial sound. So we feel it as a vibration. These energy lines often coincide with underground water flows. So in 2018, there was a paper released by the Geographical Research Letters that found that fault lines and aquifers generate subtle electromagnetic fields. So, and this is why most of our sacred sites, in the UK at least, are located near fault lines, because this fault line generates these electromagnetic fields. Could ancient people have sensed this? Yes, we sense it today. We're just not always aware of it. Now, if we go back to the field of quantum biology, this suggests that our bodies and the water in them resonates with these fields. So geomagnetic activity actually affects our nervous system. And that really gives us a hint that water in the sacred landscape is kind of a bridge between our body and the earth's energy. So imagine a spring at a sacred site. Its water is structured by the earth's vibrations, the land vibrations, the electromagnetic fields, sunlight dancing on the surface, and maybe even the chants and drummings of priests or shamans or druidesses. Now, water could have carried an energetic charge because of that, not just for drinking and consuming, but also for healing the land, growing crops, and actually connecting spiritually, because that water, along with light biophotons in our brain, is incredibly important for shifting our states of consciousness. So getting us into a neurochemistry in our brain that enables us to have altered states of consciousness. And I would say, I think that there is historical precedent for this too. So if we look at Egypt, the Nile was sacred and priests performed rituals to bless its water. In India, the Ganges is still revered and pilgrims bathe in it for purification. So we have always had these myths and legends and association of water being, a spiritually purifying experience. We have legends, the Lady of the Lake, Irish myths and legends, the Children of Lear. There are all these stories connecting to sort of the otherworldliness of water. But in 2003, a study in water research, found, for instance, that the Ganges water has unique microbial and chemical properties, possibly because it flows through mineral-rich landscapes. And, I think these things are really structured, they're quantum structuring at play. So how and what the water flows through, how it's vorticed as it goes through the landscape. So when rivers turn sharp corners, you get sideward vortices. That structures the water. When it goes through mineral-rich rock, that also affects the water. So the whole of our natural world and us, is quantum biology in action. That's what we are. And that quantum biology enables us to connect to the non-physical quantum world where everything is like a soup of energy, and it's all geometric patterns, and it's all these wonderful forms when you can go into that space with your mind. And I think the ancients, you know, knew that water at sacred sites is not just H2O. It's not that bulk water Mickey Mouse. I think they knew that you can see the difference when you look at the energy structure of water, or at least I can. I think they knew that it was a living medium and that it holds and transfers energy. So what does this mean for us today in our hectic world where bulk water comes out of our tap and all sorts of things in it? Well, if water's nature lets it store energy and information, and the water at sacred sites really could have been a tool, an ancient form of technology to boost life in the landscape. And plants will grow stronger, animals thrive, and humans feel more connected. And I personally believe that's the case. And evidence, I know from my own work and the students in my Genesis program, which is Genesis Ancient Geomancy for Contemporary Living, I would say that is the case. That's what we're seeing. We are seeing plants growing more uniformly, bigger, better crops. We're seeing better health in animals. And the people who are building sacred structures are, unlocking new levels of creativity, improving their health, starting to live a more fulfilling, joyful, and value-filled life where they're able to bring their gifts to the world. And I think, that this is true. And I believe, there's a lot of evidence for this now, not just in my work, but also, in other fields like quantum biology, like biofield tuning. I think evidence shows that we are wired, electromagnetically wired, if you like, and lubricated with water, to access this information from the quantum realms. So, if we look at our fascia in our body, it's the connective tissue in our body. It is full of structured water, and it acts like a quantum highway. So in 2022, there was a study in the Biophysical Journal that backs this. It shows how water in our fascia conducts electrical symbols faster than nerves alone. So we are literally walking resonators, tuned in to the water around us. We're tuned in to the electromagnetic fields around us. If you're a dowser and you get called weird, you're not weird, you're just wired. And it really is a marvelous journey to explore this connection and to actually then do something with it in our lives, to, work with the energy and to work with water, because we're tapping in to fields of consciousness beyond the human. And in that way, we can create environments that support human endeavours, that support plants, that support animals, that support all life in the various expressions of complexity. A tree being its best self is having, great branches, leaves, and cropping. Us being our best selves is rather more complex because we are more complex organisms. But nonetheless, when we tap into these quantum realms, everything is able to thrive. And that's what I love about geomancy, because it's an ancient form of technology. It's an organic technology because it uses water, light, rock, soil, everything around us is there present in nature to enable us to tap into higher levels of consciousness and really support the natural world that supports us. So let's just sort of tie this up, wrap this up. The quantum nature of water is real. It's a conductor of energy, it's a memory bank, and it's a life giver. And science is catching up. It's showing us how it links to the world. And maybe, just maybe, and I think I'm right in this, ancient sacred sites were built to supercharge that connection, energizing water really, to energize all life in that area. I'd love to know what you think. My students and I are doing amazing experiments with water. But I'd love to know what you feel about. Have you felt something special at a sacred space? If we look at, if you've been to Avery and wondered, was that incredibly deep ditch that surrounds it once full of water? If we look at Tilbury Hill, surrounded by water in the landscape, I'd love to, drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear whether you think water is, one of the functions of water at ancient sacred sites was to really enhance our connection and also to transform the landscape, to actually power it up. If you've enjoyed this video, obviously hit that like and subscribe and ring the bell for more deep dives. And until next time, just stay curious and maybe take a closer look at your glass of water.